33, a ransomware attack targeting city agencies is getting worse.
Our Samie Solina is live with more on this for us. Samie?
Good morning. That's right. So the most recent ransomware attack affected a provider called KRONOS. Excuse me. They pretty much do payroll for many agencies, and the agencies that we know were affected was the Board of Water Supply, Queens Medical Center, and Honolulu EMS. We're actually joined by tech expert Ryan Ozawa. Thank you again for joining us. We really do appreciate it. Would you mind explaining how ransomware attacks typically happen?
90% of the time, a ransomware attack is still an external attacker, but usually aided by an unwitting accomplice within an organization, opening a attachment or clicking a link or visiting a website that they shouldn't.
So how serious does this particular attack appear to be?
The one for the Board of Water Supply is against KRONOS, as you mentioned. It's a national provider of payroll and timekeeping software. And so it's not related to the OTS hack. It's certainly interesting timing, but it's serious in the sense that a payroll company does often have data that is a little more personal in terms of your salaries or perhaps the hours that you worked and things like that.
Now, you touched a little bit on this, but how can agencies prevent this from happening?
Well, there's a couple of very important things. Certainly, there's training in terms of making sure that everyone within your organization is aware of cybersecurity best practices. Giving every employee access to email is a matter of trust and should have training for that. The other thing, especially for ransomware that encrypts all of the data that it can access, is segregating your systems so that it doesn't spread within your organization. And of course, having current and recent backups kept of all of your systems somewhere offsite.
So last week, Oahu Transit Services were targeted by a ransomware attack. Does it seem like the city specifically is being targeted by these folks?
I think the two incidents are unrelated, but they are part of a global trend. I mean, certainly ransomware is double this year what it was last year. There's a company called SonicWall that keeps track of these statistics. I mean, 93 million attempted attacks a month is pretty big, and certainly the targets have shifted to organizations like government services, civic services, transportation, utilities, things that are very important to the day-to-day lives of regular citizens.
Why does it seem like there are, more and more ransomware attacks, as you said?
Part of it is that the tools used by hackers are becoming much more sophisticated and more easily accessible. In fact, while on one hand you can imagine that attacks on infrastructure in an organization or government might be politically motivated, it could be state-sponsored actors, China or Russia. The other true fact is that it could sometimes just be vandalism. It could just sometimes be the point of ransomware is the destruction. And because the tools are widely accessible, people will test out their tools and point them at things just to see what happens.
Right. Ryan Ozawa, thank you again for joining us. We really do appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And coming up, we'll be talking about what agencies were affected and how they were affected and what those agencies say is going to be happening next. That's coming up. For now, we'll take it back to you in the studio.
All right. Thanks, Sam.